We'd like to welcome you to the March 20th meeting of the Weare Board of Selectmen. And if you would please stand, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, if you will join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. Our first order of business, which is not on the agenda here, is to swear in our new members. I'm not speaking loud enough? Okay. I'll take care of that. Okay, so if our two new board members would please come up, and I'm going to swear you in one at a time. Just so you be front and center.
I was just going to say that.
Okay, Jan, we'll start with you. Okay, I, Jan Snyder,
I, Jan Snyder,
do solemnly and sincerely swear,
I do solemnly and sincerely swear
and affirm
and affirm
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform all the duties
discharge and perform all the duties
incumbent on me
incumbent on me
as selectman,
as selectman,
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeable to the rules and regulations
agreeable to the rules and regulations
of this Constitution and the law of the state of New Hampshire.
of the Constitution and law of the state of New Hampshire.
So help me God.
Yep.
John? I, John Osborne,
I, John Osborne,
do solemnly swear, wait a minute, I got that wrong again. Do solemnly and sincerely swear
do solemnly and sincerely swear
and affirm
and affirm
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform all the duties
discharge and perform all the duties
incumbent on me as selectman,
incumbent upon me as selectman,
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my ability,
agreeable to the rules and regulations
agreeable to the rules and regulations
of this Constitution and the law of the state of New Hampshire.
of this Constitution and the laws of the state of New Hampshire.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you. No, I'll have you sign them after. Jan and John, that's gonna be tough.
You can't leave already, Jan.
Sorry. They just wanted to be part of it. Thank you.
Okay, next order of business is the election of board officials, chairman and vice chairman. Is there any motion?
I move to nominate Tom for chair.
Is there a second?
Second motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Your nomination for vice chairman?
I nominate Ricky, whoops. Should I say it that way?
Frederick.
Ricky Hippler.
Okay, it'll be Frederick Hippler. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
I didn't know.
Thank you. All right, we have next on our agenda, should we go ahead with the?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a person we're hiring as a minute taker for land use and conservation. And so the brief non-public that we had before the meeting was to interview that person. So Jennifer, if you could just come forward for a moment, you don't have to give a speech, but if you could just, so people know who we're talking about, you could just come up to them.
Me. You can just stand at the podium.
Okay. So we need a motion for this. I could do it if I have it in front of me. Do you have it, Rick?
I don't have it.
Okay, I move that we hire Jennifer Skolage, is that right?
Yes.
As a minute taker for land use and conservation at a rate of $15 an hour.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, congratulations.
Thank you,
you.
Jen. You didn't bring this package for her, did you? Okay.
Oh, yeah. We gotta put that in. Okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves here because we only have public comment down, and Selectman Snyder just reminded me of public comment. So before we go along with the next item on the agenda, is there anyone here who wishes to speak in public comment?
First, congratulations to the new select people, men and women. And just a couple of things that I just want to bring forward in hopes that you will educate yourself by being involved with what courses are given by Primex and the local government center, as well as visiting the departments in the town on sort of a listening impartiality mission, and also listening to the community at large, not just to your own little smaller circle of people that you know well. I hope that you will do your own homework and be independent in your thinking and also in your voting, and that you will do to the best of your ability a real standing up for the whole community. And that's hard because we have many different views within the community, but if you do your homework well, you really will get the sense of what is best for the majority of the community at large. I'm sure that people have spoken to you about the importance of confidentiality, and that's, gossip can get anybody down, and so you have to be really careful for what you breathe outside of your non-publics and any other confidential stuff that you may encounter. Integrity is something that this board has done a really good job with, and I'm sure you'll continue that, making sure you don't have any conflict of interest. And to some extent that's in reality and also perceived conflicts of interest, and that if you see something that's very right, that you praise it, and if you see something that's really wrong, that you work with others to right it. Also, I think it's a good thing to not assume that you know everything, and so to reach out to others who might have some knowledge, both in the community, and there is a lot of knowledge in the community, as well as paid knowledge. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Next thing on our agenda, I'm sorry. Next one on the agenda is Frank.
Thank you. Likewise, congratulations to John and Jan. Somewhat of a reiteration for public comment. With now that you know what budget you have to work with, I have been and still am concerned about phrases that I've heard connected with the passage of the budget that you have in front of you. such as does not adequately provide for safety services, referring to the budget. Significant cuts can be set up, it can be a setup for failure on the part of the board. Another phrase is if, and I went to YouTube to confirm this, so I'm pretty accurate. And this is planning from the police department, planning for a worst-case scenario, which is quite a quality to have, whether you get a budget or not. You never know when something's going to happen. If the police department has to absorb cuts talked about, we are absolutely talking about a reduction of services. There is nothing left in the budget that we can cut that won't result in a loss of services or increased liability. And there is nothing left. There is nothing left. Those concern me. There may be some truth, come the end of the year to some of that. But I remember quite a number of years ago, and the person's name's not important, but I was actually sitting right around the middle of that room. This was sometime after we had Senate Bill 2 and we were getting default budgets. The person, after a similar vote when a default budget was passed, that person said, "Punish the people." I'll never forget that. And, that was unfortunate to hear that. There's a selectman, has stated recently, there's a new sheriff in town. So I don't know, how you will, approach the budget that you have. But I hope it's not a negative approach, excuse me, to try to work through that budget. And the only other thing which may draw a response, hopefully early on, even right now, that you're going to, start managing the budget with department heads so that there's not, like in the next couple of weeks, there's not a large expense of money that can't be brought back in and say, geez, I wish we had that. But I guess, can I expect that any budget decisions are going to be held in public and numbers are put out, say, well, this week or this month, maybe do a monthly review of how the budget's going. So would I think that would be done in public or non-public? Honestly, I don't think it should be done in non-public. I just want to get a confirmation of where those numbers might be heard.
Frank, when we get ready to present the changes to the budget according to the vote, and they'll be done right here, obviously, in public session, because anything else would be illegal, okay? But that doesn't mean that Naomi isn't having discussions with department heads to get their input before it's brought to the board, and that is going on now with particularly the three major departments, because that's the bulk of the budget. So that's where the bulk of the changes will be in the budget. Just one other thing concerning your comment. Every year we start out, the department heads start out for the first 2 months plus being conservative with the budgets because they don't know what the vote will be. So I don't think that is a worry that you need to have as far as us suddenly finding that we're behind. There are things that have to be done, like big storms have to be covered. We have to replenish the salt and the sand for those. But that we know up front is going to be January and February and this year March. But overall, we don't make arbitrary expenditures during the first 3 months of the year, really, because we have to know what our budget's going to be. I don't believe we're ready tonight to discuss those changes.
I have 3 options for you, sure.
But if, maybe when we get to your report? Or-
Yeah,
Okay.
We can do it.
Then we may be.
We only
doing
have
that.
20 days from the meeting to decide on the budget.
So it may be part of our discussion later this
Okay.
evening.
Well, what you've explained to me, I mean, would be an expectation of the way I would think things would work.
Yeah.
So
It-
you just kind of, confirm that to me, and I think that would be great. So, again, just in light of those phrases that, have been leading up to, the voting, a little bit concerning to me. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Lori Davis, I agree with what Helene said earlier. Integrity is important on this board. It is also important that you do your homework. I have been on the Finance Committee. I know the budget inside and out. And I expect my Board of Selectmen to do the same amount of homework that I do, and I will be watching that very closely. I too am concerned that we make sure that our personal interests do not get involved with the town interests. That's very, very important. And it is very important that we do not rely just on what different people say. We have to see with our own eyes and talk with the other Board of Selectmen, not just with the people that we hear from. Going forward, we have had a change in the budget. And I am very well aware and very well versed on that budget. We already know that that budget proposed was inappropriately put forth by $37,000. That was already taken out of the previous budget for the police department. So this town is now going to be having a more difficult time trying to cover that budget. It should not come from 3 departments. It should come from every department. Every department has a price to pay for what the voters have done. And they need to learn the consequences, as do the voters of this. It needs to be spread out appropriately, not just the big 3, because for some reason they seem to think that the 3 departments with the biggest budgets have the most to cough up. And those who have sat on the board, those who have worked in the town, are very much aware that there's not any fat in those budgets, and I can attest to that. So I hope that our board will be very, very careful when they do those budget cuts and make sure that the public understands that it needs to be across the board. It's not a favoritism thing. And I just ask that when you make decisions, you make them very clear to the public so that there is no confusion. Thank you.
Okay, just to clarify something, Lori, just to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. When you talk about the police budget already being down a certain amount, I think what you're referring to there is that we had an agreement with the Finance Committee that since we were short 2 officers, that we would not include the first 3 months of salary because we knew that they would not be on payroll. So we started off by not putting that in the budget for this year, so we wouldn't be taxing people on 3 months' worth of wages and benefits for 2 officers that we know would not be hired until at least April. So that's what she was referring to as far as being down to begin with. It was an agreement with the Finance Committee to keep the tax rate down. Okay, any other public comment? Okay, there being none, we'll go on to the next item on the agenda, and that's the removal of a stone wall for driveway access, and I recognize Dan Higginson.
So, working on a project on East Road. It's a lot that was subdivided back in the fall. And now I'm working on getting a driveway permit for the property, and there's a small chunk of stone wall that needs to be removed. It's, the driveway is gonna be 12 feet wide. The wall's probably not quite that wide. It's pretty much just the scab remnants of what was there at one point in time. We're proposing to take the rocks that we do disturb and stack them along with the rest of the wall to kind of thicken that up. talked to the fire department and the planning board, and they're both all right with the project, so I brought it here to you guys.
How many feet of stone wall would you need? I mean, 12-foot driveway, but how much total?
I don't know off the top of my head. I didn't measure that. But the wall, there's only about 3 or 4 rocks that are actually completely exposed, and the rest of them are 3/4 or more buried. I'm gonna guess between 6 and 8 feet, maybe. The wall actually ends about halfway into the driveway.
But what I'm looking for is the total width of the whole thing. You got 12-foot driveway. You're gonna need some room on each side of it, probably.
With the flares, 24. That where the flares are is beyond where the rocks are.
Okay, so if we say 24, that gives you plenty of space.
Absolutely.
But can I just throw a wrinkle in that?
Yes.
The driveway permit says it's going to be constructed 30 feet wide where it meets the traveled way, tapered back to 18 with a 2% slope away from the road
So we're
for a
talking
distance of 8 feet.
30 feet?
30 feet tapered back to 18, 2% slope away from the road, 8 feet into the property.
Okay, we can do up to 30 feet. But it's a
I think the
scattering
30
budget.
feet is so that they can back the fire truck in or anything like that. That's why it's tapered
That's
back in.
why it would be so high.
It's
yeah.
right, that stipulation's right there on the driveway permit.
Just for information, there's a town ordinance that says that the person who wants to remove any part of a stone wall has to first go to the planning board, and then the planning board refers that person to the Board of Selectmen for a final decision. And that's why we're going through this tonight. So you've been to the planning board, and
Yep.
they've said okay.
Yeah, and he's
correct.
been to the fire wards as well.
Any questions?
Is it gonna be 30 where it meets the road or no?
My understanding of it with the fire department is that it doesn't have to be like gravelled 30 feet wide, but it has to be flat so that they can get in there. So the disturbance at the edge of pavement would be 30 feet to cover that. The actual gravel area would be a little bit shorter.
Is that okay with you? Is that all right with you, Benji?
The only
He's-
thing I would add
Yeah.
is that the part that you're talking about now is, I guess, under the authority of the Public Works Director, because we don't really take effect until we get to the edge of the right of way. So that's why we don't necessarily address that curb cut.
Benji, you have?
Well, East Road's paved, so it's gotta be at least paved in 8 feet from the.
With a 30-foot apron and 2 degrees
Yeah.
slant.
The 30-foot
Yeah,
dirt.
Yeah, that 30-foot apron's gotta be.
So you say like 6 or 8 feet of this wall is basically what you're removing because that's what's actually gonna cross your
Correct.
driveway.
Correct.
Now, if that 30 feet, again, I'm gonna, rely on the road agent to say that he's gonna, we're gonna enforce that 30-foot apron.
Which is,
Do you need any more wall because of that, because the wall is back far enough from the road?
correct,
Okay.
yeah, no, we don't need any more.
All right. How big's the hole in the wall right now? 10 feet?
It's a section of wall that's maybe 15 feet long or so. It's a chunk of wall that was there, and it tapers off on the side we're proposing the driveway, and then tapers off in the other direction.
Any other questions? Okay, the paving part would really be between the road agent and the code enforcement. What we're talking about here is simply the stone wall.
I just want to make sure that he's got enough stone wall removed to accommodate all those.
That's why I would suggest that the motion say, remove whatever part of the stone wall necessary in order to provide a 30-foot width. Right. Make that a motion?
So moved.
Second. Okay. All in favor?
Right.
Aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The next item on the agenda is review committee appointments for selectmen. Whether we make them tonight, we'll have to make them by next week. I spoke to Naomi earlier this week, and we at least want everybody to be aware of what needs to be filled, and perhaps make them tonight if we want to, or we can wait until we have a full board next week. But I would say next week at the latest, to fill the positions. For example, our ex officio on the planning board, and any other committees that are represented by selectmen.
You won't have a full board next week. Jack's got
Jack's
service
gonna be
for his dad.
Okay.
His dad passed away election day.
So,
He's on Parks and Rec, isn't he? I think he is.
Yeah.
yeah. Could you review, or do you have that
Yeah.
available?
Planning board, we need an ex officio. The CIP subcommittee needs an ex officio. Parks and Rec, Stone Fund, and Heritage Commission. So planning board is the second and fourth Thursday nights at 7. CIP subcommittee basically meets at 8:30 in the morning, starting in about August and running through October. They meet Wednesday mornings at 8:30 a.m. right here on TV. Parks and Rec is the second Tuesday night, starting at 7. The Stone Fund meets once a year in November or December. They all get together. And the Heritage Commission is basically inactive at this point, but that's the fifth committee that, if it ever became active, somebody would have to be part of.
I'll do the Heritage and Stone Fund.
Yeah, people are always clamoring for
I'm
that
gonna take
stone
two.
fund.
I'm gonna take 2, Heritage and the Stone.
You do that, I'll see that we resurrect the Heritage Commission and have them meet weekly. I'm just kidding.
I wouldn't mind doing CIP
Okay.
during the day.
Okay, is there someone else, is there competition for that, for CIP? So Jan, if everybody's okay with it, we'll just go ahead with that. And I have been doing planning board. I don't mind continuing with that, but if somebody else wants it, that's fine too. John, would you be interested in that?
No, I was thinking of Park and Rec myself.
Okay. So you can put me down for planning board again for the following year?
Yep.
Now, I don't, hate to change it from Jack without his having knowledge of it, but
He hasn't been able to meet a lot of them because of, I think,
Work.
with work and little Jack is in Boy Scouts. Yeah.
Okay, then we'll put John down for Parks and Rec. And Rick, that only leaves you the Stone.
I know. I said I'm gonna take 2 committees.
All right, we're gonna give him both.
Yeah. Just because one doesn't meet.
Is there anything else?
No, that's the only 5 of them that I had. You don't. So that's. They'll have to. I'll give them your email address.
That's fine. Whatever.
All right. We don't have minutes to do because I just got them.
So we'll postpone those for
Next week.
next week.
If you do the manifest, then I can go into the budget discussion if you want. All right, now which one of you is going to make sure I have 3 signatures? I'm sorry, I'm a little bossy, but
On the manifest?
Yep.
I'm halfway through.
Okay.
There'll be 3.
okay.
Okay, I moved that we order the treasurer to sign payroll and accounts payable checks dated March 23rd, 2017, as included in the following manifests. Payroll, $78,664.21. That's weekly, monthly, and quarterly payrolls included there. And an accounts payable amount of $18,541.28 for a total of $97,205.43.
Second.
Any discussion? Just, I think in the payroll, am I correct, that also, does that include insurance buyouts?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why it
Buyouts and
sounds,
stipends.
higher
Stipends in there.
Quarterly.
this week. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Who seconded, did you get that?
I did.
Right here so I can hear him.
Loud and proud.
I guess I'm gonna, before we get started, I'll hop right in as, What I'm gonna hand you is a memo that was put together, I'm going to say, with the efforts of Beth, both chiefs, and Benji, with 3 options. I don't know if you want me to publicly talk, I mean, I can read them, they're just very short, they're words, few numbers.
So that will be fine.
There's basically 3 options. Option 1, we all know that the proposed amendment was 108,872, which is 1.85% of the entire budget. We looked at reducing all 37 departments by that percentage. However, there are 4 budgets that are entirely wages or obligations, meaning town officers' wages, long-term debt, capital outlay, which is lease payments, and insurances. The budget was then looked at reducing by the remaining 33 departments by 2.125%. It came to our attention that at least 4 of the remaining budgets only have wages and contacts remaining, and that cannot be reduced further. This would additionally burden the remaining departments. Calculations were accomplished, however, all departments would have to be replenished fully for 2018 to continue the quality of services the town previously offered. That's option 1. 2, we looked at the 3 larger departments. If you take the entire 108,872 reduction divided by the 3, you'd be looking at reducing over $36,000 each of the 3 large budgets. These departments originally proposed lower budgets in order to accommodate the increases in services. These budgets agreed that the increase in service would benefit the town as a whole and willingly cut their budgets to a bare minimum. Although these departments have larger budgets, such as vehicle maintenance, salt and sand, protective clothing, etc., are items that would have to suffer in order for the departments to be reduced. Option 3. Take the 3 larger departments, which is the fire, police, and DPW, and they would consider postponing new hires or replacements as follows. Fire department would not begin the extended coverage of nights until July. Highway department would not fill the position of employee that just recently gave his notice till August. Police department would hold off hiring the part-time secretary until July. Hold off filling both part-time officers, 1 until July and 1 in the entire year, and hold off filling 2 full-time positions until May. This staggered hiring plan covers the entire 108,872 reduction. Those are the 3 options that we have gone over. Keep in mind that 2018, whatever we end up and propose becomes your default. Keep that in mind. As far as the, and let me just, as far as the non-discretionary items.
The department heads of fire, police, and DPW in agreement with option 3?
Yeah, you can hear from 2 of them. One of them is long distance, but I'd put him on speakerphone if you needed to. We've had that conversation.
But you've had that conversation?
I've had it with all 3 of them.
Questions or comments?
I think I'd like to hear from them and.
Don't race to the podium.
Don't all jump at once.
Trip over each other. I just got to defer to director. I think it's obvious that the place to go looking for money is the departments that have larger budgets. My concern, as I expressed from the get-go, isn't necessarily 17. Obviously, losing any money in 17 will be painful for us because all of our it would have an impact on services, especially looking at that weekend and weekday night or weekend and night coverage piece that we were trying to put forth. But you know, whatever cuts that we make in some accounts, those become default numbers in 18's budget, and so we perpetuate that reduction depending on where we put it in the budget. And so, given this option 3, I think is the least painful, certainly for the fire department, and I think across the board, townwide. So I support this option, because I think, just speaking from the fire department side, that it serves us the best going forward.
Option 3.
Option 3.
I think we all three are in agreement that, the fear is it'll probably become our new default number as we deduct $100 out of this line, 5,000 out of that line. And I know my budget personally was already like $2,600 less this year than it was in 15. So I hate just keep going backwards. Nothing gets any cheaper. Lesser the evils, I guess. That's how you want to put it. I just had a guy give his 2-week notice, and his 2 weeks isn't even up, so it just happened to work that way. It's not like, push someone out the door to make this work, obviously. And just as long as it doesn't get forgot that that position is there come August, I'm certainly in support of this over, over all the other options. Because another thing that happened in my department, not knowing that we were going to get surprised in town meeting, was I was trying to put hazardous waste day in my transfer station budget so that we don't have to turn people away. I'm sure John can relate to have to turn a couple people away, and you feel about this tall. It's not fair. Well, that money wasn't in, the default budget. And then those are the numbers that this budget got derived from, I believe. So I don't know where I would come up. I don't have any fat transfer station budget. I don't know where I'd come up with that money to have hazardous waste day. I don't have nothing to cut.
Actually, I think that the money was in the proposed budget, and what was approved was a reduced proposed budget, not the
Right.
default.
Right.
So
I think their numbers kind of was thought of as last year's default, right? We don't know, I guess. But.
I think the $7,000 would be in there. And
The $7,000 is in this reduction, and the calculations that were made still leaves it in the transfer station budget as a operating proposed budget expense. So going forward, it would stay in there.
Yeah.
And this year, it's budgeted for $7,000.
so you're all set with that?
Yeah.
And we did the wording of the, I don't know what the number of the article was, but the standalone article on hazardous waste was worded in such a way that we have no option. That was voided out when the operating budget was passed, even though it was a lower operating budget than what we were expecting. If we'd ended up with a default budget, then that standalone article would have not been voided, and the $7,000 would have been there. But the way it played out, even though the budget number for the proposed is lower, that $7,000 remains in the transfer station fund.
It is, but if we cut, 36 grand, I got to cut enough from other lines to make that 7,000 happen, I guess is my point.
Yeah, but with option 3, you wouldn't be cutting
That's right, that's why I'm
36,000.
saying I support
Yeah.
option 3.
Okay,
All right.
now I follow you.
Now we're on the same page. All right.
That's one of the biggest reasons for supporting this. We have that particular department would be very hard to find enough cuts to come up with 7,000 I need to.
Yeah.
Right.
And salt always gets brought up, but this year, I don't think I'm gonna have fat in that either. So, and my maintenance line is terrible already this year. So, I think the lesser of three evils is just having kind of a hire and freeze, so to speak, and we'll just have to make it work shorthanded for a few months. And as long as those spots don't get forgot about, I'm good for it.
Aren't you, wait a minute, is it really gonna affect you though, during your road reconstruction and all that?
Well, just be a guy down, I guess. I mean, we're used to being short because nobody can take vacations in the winter, so we're always short-handed in the summer. We'll make it work, but I would sooner do that than cut lines that are already skimpy. Mowing's another one. There's never enough money, and we always have to scrimp to come up enough to mow. So that's always a line that gets cut. This town's in bad need to get caught up on that. So, and I know we could take a percentage over the 30 budgets or whatever there is, but highway, police and fire are gonna take the big hit. I know we could spread it all out, but some of them, you're talking just a few dollars, we're still gonna take the biggest hit. So, I think we should just take option 3.
And I did have a conversation with Sean. Sean's out of state. And we had a conversation at lunchtime before I would even think of bringing it forward and making sure. We've met, the 4 of us, Beth included. We all met Friday and kind of, I would say, worked out the 3. But without having Sean's input, I didn't feel right to come forward with that. That's why we had a conversation today at lunchtime. And he's all for this staggering approach. So
next week, will we have a printout of what the new line-by-line budget will look like?
if you're ready to go option 3, we have forms.
Tonight?
We do.
Yeah, I'll make an exception for you.
Don't, all right.
We have another public comment at the
No,
end.
that's all right. I'll probably know what the answer is anymore. I've sat there before.
And I mean, we did this, I guess, hoping for the best, because we do have 20 days to get those forms in.
Well, we will have the same members here next week as we do
Right.
this week, so
Exactly why I had Beth do them.
if we're ready to
Beth has them, I don't.
go, are we okay with that? Okay.
We'll go with it.
Well,
Personally, no.
before we do, is everybody okay with option 3?
Oh,
Yeah, option 3, yeah.
Yeah.
Option 3, yes.
Okay. Want to make sure before we move
that's
any
just the
further.
front, just the front. Just the front, yep.
Just the front, just one copy?
Just sign, because we can print the clear number. Just kidding. I'll print it.
Yeah, I was thinking of a different form. This is the one for the state?
We have to submit within 20 days of voting the budget form.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about the line-by-line breakdown that we
Oh,
use?
I don't think, we don't have those, we don't have those number printouts. Because this is just a bottom line for each budget.
Okay. But maybe for the next time, we'll have that.
For the next time, we can probably do that. And I just, can I just continue? Last week, we discussed the payment arrangement plans for the outstanding taxes. Just want to clarify, a number was given out from, this is a sheet that if you're unable successfully to pay your taxes, we can come in and we can make a payment arrangement before we deed your property. So this list only contains the people that are on payment arrangements. So the number that was given of $113,384.51 are those on payment arrangements. Total outstanding taxes, 9 through 15, is $448,051.31. So I just want to make that, for anyone that was watching, or you're going to see it in the minutes, it's only those that have payment arrangements, because these other ones that are in an outstanding status have not reached the point of deeding, which would require them to come up for a payment arrangement. I just want to make that clear. And then for the current year, just so, let's throw a few numbers out here. Current year receivables for 2016, the outstanding taxes is $520,271.15. So we have almost $1 million that's still owed us in outstanding taxes total. So just, I want everybody to clear that 113 is not the only number that we had. The 113 was just payment arrangements. In that 113, it's a total of 448. The 113 is part of. So just for clarity. I do have, there's a tax yield levy here that didn't get in the box. I wasn't sure how many people came over the weekend.
I did.
Okay, well, if you would sign in both places in black ink would be best. You all set?
Do we need to take a vote on it?
We
No, the
voted for
town already
option
voted.
3,
Oh,
The town already voted, yeah.
so this is just the bottom line.
That's the
that
bottom line
that
for each
the
department.
Town voted for.
Yes.
Um,
And there's a tax levy right there coming down your way that didn't get in the box on Friday.
Did you have a list for your administrative report?
Funny you asked, they're right here.
Oh, okay.
They just didn't make it down to your spot. I'll be honest with you, the only thing I added new was the elections to the board officers. It's the only thing that has really changed since last week. Most of our time's been spent trying to figure out our 108. But at the end of the evening, I would like to have a non-public under C, please, when we reach the end of the evening. So the only thing that's new on that sheet, Tom, is the election of what you guys were gonna do,
Okay.
which you already took care of.
If we could go back to the first thing on your list.
Sure.
Related to the town hall, since we have 2 new members here today.
Yep.
I would like to share something related to that. First, if you look in the bold sentence at the top and just kind of underline the date, May 4th, 2015. That's when this list was generated of, we meaning the Board of Selectmen met at the town hall. I think we were all there.
Yep.
Went up in the tower, looked around the building, and then I followed up with a list of the things that we had looked at. So these are really important items that are part of this building and the deterioration that's happening from the top, which you can obviously see, to around back where there's water damage and rotting eaves and so forth. The things that have been done, it needed a new boiler. That's a big item, and that's been done. There's a new heating system, a new boiler installed. The front sign, the letter part of that has been repaired, and new letters have been purchased, so you don't have the old yellow ones there. And we have one estimate to restore the sign itself, but that's kind of been put on hold because it was some talk of having it as a Eagle Scout project. But that hasn't come forward so far, so we would... handicap parking was moved, and so it's not straight in. It was moved off to the right, nearer to the Legion building, so that the plow can push the snow straight in, and also so that a person in a handicapped vehicle isn't in the fire lane. No parking signs were moved slightly, so they're not directly in front of the building, they're on the corner. And the plantings were all removed because it was overgrown there all the time, so we got those out of the way. So those are the only things that have been done. What's left, the first thing anybody driving by can see that the town hall tower no longer has spires. Those have all been removed because of rot, and some of them had actually fallen off. Water deflection over the handicapped ramp door. That's a small item, but it hasn't been completed. We've got to take a close look at the windows, either replacement or some major repair. They're all in terrible shape. The putty's falling out of them. The storm windows, there are pieces that are missing altogether. The mechanism to work the windows in some cases are broken. Around back, the cornice work up under the eaves in some sections is rotted out. And so we've got to get somebody in there to tear it out and fix it before it goes any deeper. The corner boards are deteriorated and need to be replaced and repainted. Also, some areas of the bell tower, the outside, and we've got pictures, when we were up there taking the spires down, we had photographs. And if there's not attention given to that right away, we're gonna have more rot up there. Right now, I don't think there's very much rot, but there certainly is some coming apart of the clapboards and so forth. And then the others I already mentioned. So these are major items, and so we've got to prioritize those and get going on them as soon as weather permits. Also, we do have the replacement doors that are stacked on the stage, and we have to get estimates on those and get them done as soon as possible. This weekend, the library had a indoor yard sale, and the doors were literally falling off. You know, had to push the screws back in order to close the doors. So we've got to get that done. The doors are there. Find a contractor, reliable local contractor to install the new doors, because they're going to literally fall off if we don't do that. So I really would like to see us make this a top priority, getting those doors on, and then go right down the list and tackle those things that we can afford that need to be done before they deteriorate any further, and then plan for the future for the other things and cost them out. So just, that's my speech for the night.
Back to public comment.
Okay, we're gonna have public comment in just a minute, okay? Is there anything else, before we do that, well, we have other business coming up anyway, so public comment.
Tom, I think you had already left when we closed the building up on Saturday and went out the front door. You got drenched, so you need to take a look at the way the melt is going, because, and I don't remember if I sent you an email on this or not. No. The water was coming down. If it had frozen, the granite would have been a sheet of ice. So before the new doors go in, maybe that needs to be looked at, so that, because a splashback would go right back on the doors as well.
Coming off the roof?
Well, it's coming from somewhere, because I didn't have to take a shower when I got home.
It's an advantage to everything.
Everything has a positive side to it, I know. But anyway, that was something that we hadn't mentioned. And the other things that you and I talked about will get taken care of in some other way, especially the sink. The sink, yeah. We'll get an estimate on that soon. That's another thing that's not on here, but the slop sink in the custodian room is broken. It's got like a big chunk taken right out of it. Oh, it's a fiberglass type of sink, and so that needs to be replaced. And we should be able to just get a local person, a plumber, to replace that. It's not going to be enough to require going out to bid.
Good evening, everybody. Congrats to John and Jan.
Thank you.
I'm glad somebody got in there. Going back to the budget approval option 3, quick question. Why was it ever talked about making cuts to Parks and Recs instead of the vital services? And what was that discussion? Because to me it seems like a lot more important to keep fire, keep PD, keep highway versus some lifeguards for a temporary fix. Second, no, I think that's it for tonight. Thank you.
I can answer your question.
Sure.
Parks and Rec was not looked at, because Parks and Rec, what they do is that seasonally, they have a budget. Karen's very good with the budget, and so when she's reached her dollar amount, whether it's September, then she cuts back time anyway, and it gets closed.
Okay.
So, I mean, for the short season that we have it, and that's one of those budgets that when we took a percentage, there, you know, it was minimal. That's
Okay.
how I look at it.
'Cause-
The other thing, just to let you know,
Sure.
is in the Parks and Rec budget, there is some money for senior activities. Now, I
Okay.
think that might be a place someone would have looked at cutting, which I certainly wasn't, because I think the seniors deserve as much. You know, we only give them $1,000 for the year,
there's
and
not a
that's
lot we
not
give 'em.
much.
I get
And we're an aging community,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say that, and I just don't, I guess I looked at it like,
Rub it in.
they buy it in the store. Anyway, so I just felt, first of all, that's a short season. It employs our youth for a short period of time to keep the lake open.
Yep.
And then she does monitor it and takes care of the situation. Taking away a lifeguard and leaving the gate open, I don't think is really an option that we would have had either.
I
you
would
know.
disagree with that only because Clough State Park years ago used
Sure.
to have a staffed lifeguard. Now they don't because of budgetary cuts.
Yep.
Personally, I would have rather seen
Yep.
another highway guy.
Okay.
If anything, just part-time.
Yeah,
if that's
I'm just
allowed.
being upfront.
Yep.
We didn't look at that for a couple of reasons. Whether
Yep.
we agree or not, we can respectfully disagree,
Yep.
but that's why we didn't.
I'll go ahead and bring it up seeing as I'm up here. The second
Sure.
thing, Jan, I assume you've stepped down as deputy treasurer.
I'm going to.
Okay. What is is that an elected position?
No, it's appointed
It is appointed
Appointed by the treasurer.
by the treasurer.
by the treasurer.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I want clarification on. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
No, thank you.
Any other public comment? Correspondence or other business? Anyone have other business for this evening? Okay, you wanted to go into non-public under what?
See,
C? Okay, if there's no other business, I move that we go into non-public session under RSA 91A3, Roman numeral 2C.
Second.